All right, so I'm not sure how many of you guys came here for the lecture, but today we're actually talking about mental health awareness, being that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so part of the deal with that is we have a new campus outreach program that is a collaboration with RVC Police, Student Services, and it's geared for everybody, students, faculty, staff members, whoever. It's also open to the public if anybody wants to come out. So like I said, for this month we're focusing on mental health. There's a lot of unknowns with that, and we definitely deal with, as a police department here, we deal with a lot of mental health calls here on campus. So it's definitely an important topic, especially in the Rockford area, just because there's so many limited facilities that there used to be. But there still are a good number of resources that you can reach out to. So basically what we're going to do today is we have a couple speakers here that are going to talk about a variety of mental health topics and things you can do to better your mental health, things you can talk to others if they're suffering from mental health, or just to gain some knowledge for yourself. So like I said, my name is Officer Stahl with RVC Police. Our first speaker will be George Hernandez. He's with the RVC Psychology Department. Very knowledgeable. He's been teaching here a lot of years, so he definitely knows a lot to know about mental health. And then after that, we'll have Katie Buss, who has also taught here quite a while and knows a lot about mental health as well as the physical effects and things you can do for bettering yourself, whether it be physically or mentally. So without further ado, I will turn it over to George.
Thank you. So what I wanted to start off with was talking a little bit about the cost of mental health. So let's see. So we talk about the human cost of mental health. One of the biggest things is the suicide rate. Now, in every age group that we're tracking right now, suicide is one of the leading causes of death. And can you click on the blue, the word human cost? I don't think I can do it with this. Hopefully, it will go to the link. I was going to just show you the diagram talking about it, but the link's not coming up, so that's okay. These are pre-pandemic figures from 2019, and the reason why I'm using that is for a variety of reasons, and now this isn't working. The suicide rates actually dropped during the pandemic, and I think that's important because of presentations like this. People will say, is talking about mental illness important? Is increased awareness, does it have an impact on things? Most of the researchers in this area believe the suicide rates went down during the pandemic because of increased awareness. More people were worried about mental health during the pandemic. You saw more things in the press, more things online. We started to see people release TikTok videos, stuff on Twitter. Social media became a really big driver where people were talking about mental illness and making sure that people were good, and the rates went down. So we're actually looking at that as a good thing, because prior to the pandemic, the suicide rate had actually started to increase over the last decade or so. So we know that there's a big cost here. When we look at the research, 1 in 5 adults in the United States experienced some form of mental illness in 2019. So again, we're looking at a huge number of people that can be experiencing something related to mental illness. Now that could include a family member who was suffering from it, a friend, but it was impacting 1 in 5 Americans. If we look at this not from a human cost, but just a monetary cost, this is where we try to get people to fund our efforts, when we try to get government agencies, local agencies involved. In 2019, spending on mental health here in the United States reached $225 billion. This is up 52% since 2009. So we know there are a lot of people suffering. We know that mental health care can be expensive. So we're trying to do what we can to reach out to people. We're going to employers and we're talking to them about taking an active role in the mental health of their employees. So depression alone is thought to lead to about 200 million lost workdays each year. So we're not talking about anxiety, we're not talking about other things. This is just focused in on depression. Recently, some of you might have heard, a couple companies are thinking about instituting, time off, on a weekly, monthly basis. A couple school districts have started to dismiss school early on certain days, not here in Illinois, but in other places. People are realizing that the workforce is really stressed. We are now seeing more retirements over the last few months than ever before. There was this idea that when the pandemic incentive for unemployment ended in September, that we'd see this big bump in people coming back to work. That has not happened. Retirements are up. People are leaving jobs in record numbers. They're leaving certain sectors and going after other things. A lot of people want to work from home right now. And when we interview them and we talk to them, and I do have some of this in the links, they're telling us they just don't feel safe. They feel stressed out. A lot of people are talking to us about burnout. So some of you might have people that that are in the workforce that definitely are feeling these things. I know that I see it in some of my students who are trying to balance work, trying to balance school, trying to balance family, and they're really, really stressed out right now. So efforts like these to increase awareness, I think, is very important. So no matter how you try to look at the cost of mental health care, the cost is high. Now, we're trying to do more to normalize looking for help, seeking help in people. So there are educational efforts going on. There are research efforts going on. You have organizations putting out, campaigns organized around the idea that you're not alone. The National Alliance on Mental Health has a huge webpage set up with all kinds of information for people where they can go. But the general idea is we want people to know that it's okay to ask for help, that they're not alone in their struggle. One of the difficulties we sometimes run into, especially with college-age students, is the idea that nobody's like them, that they're unique, and that's okay. But the problem with that, sort of taken to the extreme, is if you feel nobody's like you, then you may feel like you can't ask for help. Nobody's going to understand me. Nobody's felt this way before. Nobody's had, this level of anxiety, this level of stress. I shouldn't be complaining. I, should figure this out on my own. And if you have that mentality, then you're not seeking out help. And of course, one of the things we find over and over and over again is that if I go back to the statistics on suicide, oftentimes people that either commit or attempt suicide, they've talked to people about their thoughts and feelings. They've made it known what they were feeling in their heart, but they didn't reach out for that help. They often felt isolated, they felt alone, they felt like nobody would understand them. So anything that we can do to let people know they're not alone, that the thoughts that they're feeling are not abnormal, that we can help them, is going to go a long way to save people. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about were just some of the trends that we're noticing in mental illness right now, and this is where I'll slow down a little bit. Mental illness is rising fastest in the 18 to 25-year-old population. So as I mentioned before, I see it in my students. In this population is when we start to see a lot of issues arise, whether we're talking about depression, anxiety, or major psychological illnesses like schizophrenia. People often experience their first episode during this time period. So there's this idea that many young adults get, that as they get older, life is going to get easier, everything's going to be fine. That's not actually true. So we talk about life satisfaction, and you can Google this. If you go out and Google life satisfaction curve, happiness curve, what you tend to find is that people are really happy in childhood. Then they hit adolescence, and their overall life satisfaction, happiness starts to go down. And it tends to bottom out in the 40s and then slowly start to go up again. So for many people that are college age or that are young adults just sort of starting out, their life satisfaction is starting to go down. But if you think about it, it makes sense. Moving away from home, becoming financially independent, watching friends move away. There are a lot of things that people deal with in young adulthood that are stressful. Finding a new job, buying a home. So in young adulthood, life doesn't get easier, it gets harder. And so if people don't have good coping mechanisms, if they don't have that good social support network, all of that stuff can get overwhelming for people. So it's not that they're weak, it's not that they're ignorant, it's not that there's something wrong with them. It's life. And the reality is, it tends to get harder before it gets easier. And for some of you, you might have parents or people watching this might be, in that middle age range and might be wondering, well, why does it bottom out, in the 40s? There are lots of different reasons, but I think the one that most people can relate to, there are patterns in life. So let's say somebody has a child when they're 25. When that child is 45, well, their parents had them when they were 25. So you take 45, you add 25 to it, that parent is 70. Average lifespan in the United States is right around 78. If you're in your 40s, you're watching your parents die. You're watching your parents deal with aging. There's a reason why happiness starts to bottom out in the 40s. And again, if you're in your 40s and you had kids when you were in your 20s or early 30s, they're hitting the teenage years. They're not as dependent on you as much. They might be starting to pull away, becoming more independent. Some of that tension that occurs between parents and adolescents, that can also cause a lot of stress. So we talk about middle-aged people often being sort of in a sandwich. They're still dealing with their children, but in a different way. They're now starting to have to deal with aging parents, and the dynamic between them as a child and their parent is starting to change. All of that contributes to stress. So if we go inside the suicide numbers, the group with the highest over suicide rate is actually older adults, specifically men over the age of 85. And a lot of that has to do with health, changing roles, all of that stuff. But we're going to watch the younger age group. We know that there are a lot of issues in younger children related to anxiety, learning disabilities, depression. Those are the most commonly diagnosed things in children right now. There are more efforts being made to reach out, to help them, to do what we can, but that's not really the focus of this particular talk. We also tend to find that mental health is linked to faster aging in middle age. So we often tend to find a lot of middle-aged people, just like younger adults, are not always seeking help, not always asking for support, and that's a really bad thing. When we look at what's driving aging today, a lot of it is what we call secondary aging, not necessarily related to biological factors. Stress has a huge toll on the body. And anything that we can do, not just to reach out to a stereotypical college age, but to their parents, to some of their older friends as well, is going to make a big impact. When we look at older adults, they do suffer from mental illness, but a lot of them do not seek help. So when we try to look at older adults today, they were often raised during a generation where they were taught that they could handle things on their own. So we do see a lot of self-medication in older adults. So, and I don't want anybody to read into this. I know many of you might have grandparents or older relatives that would fall into that late adulthood age range, but they're often self-medicating. Alcoholism is a huge issue. There was a study that came out a few years ago, looked at emergency rooms, and they found when they specifically just looked at older Americans, almost a third of all of the cases coming into the emergency room had to deal with some form of drug dependency, whether we're talking about alcoholism or a few years ago when we were worried about things like Oxy and some of the painkillers. So these older adults were suffering from depression, suffering from anxiety, but they were often turning to self-medicating behaviors because, again, they were raised in that generation. They didn't want help. They felt like they needed to work on it on their own. So it's not too surprising when we look at some of these other statistics, like only about half of older adults who discuss mental health issues with a doctor actually receive help. So they're going in and they're talking about the fact that they're having signs of depression, difficulty sleeping, insomnia, restlessness. They may be showing signs of drug dependency, drinking in isolation, all of these other things we look for. They talk to their doctor about it, and what does the doctor say? Oh, well, a lot of people when they get older have difficulty sleeping. Probably not an issue. Or many people from your generation have a beer every now and then, probably not that big of an issue. So the doctors are also feeding into that idea that older adults probably don't have mental health issues or need to resolve it on their own, and they're just not being referred. And so we're a little worried right now within the psychological community that we have the pandemic going on, and even though people are seeking out help right now, as I said, the suicide rates are down, we do find a lot of people self-reporting burnout in work, burnout in relationships, people talking about anxiety and stress. Are they going to seek help? Are they going to go out and talk to somebody about what they're feeling? And if the cost of mental health care remain high, are they going to be able to have access to some of those services? So it would not surprise me that if many of you either hear or who eventually watch this, if you hear more about efforts to increase government funding, efforts to continue to increase awareness, and just efforts, again, to normalize the idea that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay for people to not be okay. And I'm sure what I just said is not the first time you heard that specific saying. So I know I went through things a little fast. I had some stats to show you, but just for purposes of keeping things moving today, I won't go into all of the statistics, but thank you. And now we have another speaker, Katie Buss from Health, Fitness, and Wellness will be talking to you.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out today if you're here or watching from home if you're watching on video. I have my notes so I stay on track because I'll get lost in my own thoughts. So I wanted to talk today about mental health and how it's one of the forgotten components of overall wellness. I need this clicker. So when most of us think about health or wellness, we think about, okay, I need to have my diet in place, check. I need to have my fitness or my exercise in place, check. And mental health? Not so much, right? So you don't have to answer this, but I was just wondering, even if you don't exercise and eat healthy on an everyday basis, most of us think or plan on it, right? That's how I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to eat right and I'm going to exercise. And that's it. That's all a lot of us plan for, right? And so we have to remember that there's many components to health and wellness, and mental health's a big one of those, okay? So real quick, I just wanted to mention, what does health and wellness mean? Because you hear it all the time, right? You hear, oh, health and wellness. But if I ask people to define that, they can't usually define it, right? So health itself just means the absence of illness, right? Where am I at here? Oh, it just means like physical, mental, and social well-being and not being sick. So that's what health means. But then later we started adding the term wellness to that because we needed a little bit bigger picture. And so what we did was we added the term wellness to describe that health isn't like a static status, right? It's always changing. And so we added wellness to show that there's a continuum, and that continuum you can slide back and forth on continuously throughout your life. And so that's what health and wellness mean. So health is just being healthy and being not disease and sickness free, whereas wellness means I can slide on that continuum of being more sick, being less sick, things like that. But our goal is to always work towards this side, right? Being optimally healthy. So now that we know those terms, I just want to talk about mental health now. What would the definition then of mental health be? If we know what health and wellness are, we know what exercise and diet are, what's mental health? What does that have to do with? Does anybody have any ideas? I'm putting pressure on some of you because there's only a few of you here, so you're like, oh my gosh, I have to answer. There's just things like your feelings. It's the feeling side of things, right? So things like being able to express emotions when it's appropriate, right? And not expressing certain things when it's not appropriate. Feelings of love and hate and anger and fear, self-esteem, all those types of things have to do with mental health. Okay? And I think that's important because some people hear the term mental health, but they don't know exactly what we're talking about. So that's important too. But all mental health, physical health, diet, they're all considered components of your overall health and wellness. They're all important. But today we're just going to talk about mental health because it is one of the critical components to wellness. So is optimal health a destination? Do we just get there one day? Or is it a journey? So I see you guys shaking your heads. It's not a destination. You can't just say, I want to be fit, exercise for a week, and be fit for the rest of your life, right? I want to eat healthy, so I'm going to eat healthy for a week and then be, nutritionally sound the rest of your life. Same goes for mental health. You can't just think about it one day, decide that you're mentally well, and then you're well for the rest of your life, right? They all need work. We have to work on all these components. And unfortunately, we have to work on them all of our lives, right? It's not a destination or an endpoint. It's a continuous journey that we have to put the work into. So since you have to do it, you don't have to, I guess. You could not work on those things and be unhappy, unhealthy, unwell. But since you want to work on those things, you might as well try to enjoy the ride, right? Find a way to make these things a part of your life that you enjoy. And then the other thing that's important here is that they're all interrelated. If you are sick or low on the spectrum or low on the continuum for one of these, it's probably going to affect the other ones as well, right? So if I am physically ill, let's say I get really physically sick and I'm suffering from some kind of disease, I'm going to use cancer for example, that's most likely going to affect your mental health, right? And so they're all interrelated, and it's important to remember that, negative aspects in one can really be a detriment to the others. So when we work on one, we want to work on all of them, right? So that they all pull us forward to be happier, healthier, fitter, all of the above. So mental health check. You don't have to actually raise your hands. It can be theoretical because there's not many people in here today. So how many of you think about diet and exercise on a daily basis? How many of you think about your mental health on a daily basis? Okay, good. Some of us do, right? But a lot of people actually really don't, and that's a problem. And so the point is, why? Why do we not focus on our mental health? We know it's important. Some of the ideas I came up with are, I'm too busy. That's my excuse most of the time. Is it taboo? Is it something that I don't want to talk about? Is it a sign of weakness that I need to ask for help or think about it or talk about it? Or do I just not know where to start? And those are all legitimate reasons why, but whatever the reason, we have to do better, right? So mental health is a lifelong process, and even if you haven't been working on it You can still start today. All right. So what kind of people need to work on mental health? Who needs mental health help? Yeah. That's a dead, yeah, there you go. Everyone. We should all be thinking about our mental health. Everybody should. Nobody is free of issues dealing, with their own mental status. So it's important for all of us to continually seek growth in that area, just like we seek growth in nutrition, exercise, and all those other things. So this might mean that you're doing things on your own. It might mean that you're seeing a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and it might even be medication. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. And like George was saying, that's a big stigma in our society, is it looks weak. I look like a weirdo or a psycho, right, if I have to go see someone and take medication. And that's detrimental to our society and to our happiness. And we really, as a community, need to change that, right? And one of the examples I use sometimes is if a diabetic thought it was weak to take their insulin, right, they would suffer greatly. So why is it that somebody who maybe have mental health issues, like maybe with the neurotransmitters in their brain, why is it weak for them if they have to get medication? It shouldn't be. It's not. And so that's kind of an example I try to use to people, be like, oh, yeah, that does make sense. So I think that stigma is detrimental, and we really need to work on that. And so I decided to share one of my stories about mental health, and that is I have experienced trauma in my life. Most people have, right? And if they haven't, they probably will at some point. This is kind of a trigger warning, just in case. But I've watched my mother die of cancer at a fairly early age. It was, a struggle to see her go downhill within a period of 8 months from the time we found out to the time she passed away. It was extremely traumatic. And then just recently, we started trying to have a family, and I suffered 3 miscarriages and a stillborn child before I was able to finally have my baby girl. And that was very traumatic as well. And after I had my daughter, it was finally my last pregnancy, and everything went great, and I had her. And a day after I had her, I started to suffer severe postpartum depression. And it was like, it hit me like a rock. I was not expecting it. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know why I was feeling this way, especially because I had tried so hard for this baby. And now I'm extremely depressed and anxious and all these other things. And I finally decided, why did I wait to experience trauma in my life or to hit rock bottom before I reached out for help? I don't know. And I do think it's that stigma of mental health, right? And so I did finally reach out to my doctor, and she did connect me with the appropriate people. So I have been seeing my postpartum doctor and therapist, and they put me on the right medication. And the reason I share that is because I guess I'm supposed to be a successful person, right? People look up to me and think I must be doing pretty well in my life. But that doesn't mean that, one, that I don't also have issues that I need to deal with, and 2, that it's bad in any way. All right. And so that's why I just wanted to share that, because I think a lot of people are scared to think that I'm going to look like a weirdo or something if I need help, right? And that's not the case. So it's okay to get help. Get help. There are resources out there. One, you can just go straight to your primary doctor, but like George said, sometimes that's not the best outcome, but at least it's a starting point. At least they might be able to refer you to somebody else. Start there. If they don't give you the help you need, start talking to friends and family and loved ones and see if they have anybody, any ideas for you. There are some things. I found this organization that you can call, and they'll help find resources in your area. And again, if it's a severe emergency, you can always call 911 or the suicide prevention hotline. And I've heard that my whole life. Oh, here's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and you hear about, you can tell someone to call it. But you never ever have to use it, right? Or ask somebody to use it. But I actually had to this year. It was over the break. Summer break, I had not really a close friend, but somebody from high school that I know that I'm friends with on Facebook posted on Facebook that, "Goodbye world, this is the last time you're going to see me." And at first I thought it was a joke because I'm like, who would put that on Facebook, right? And so I started reading the comments thinking it was some kind of joke, and people were like, "Hey man, call me, are you okay?" And I was like, I don't think this is a joke. And so I just decided I'm going to reach out. So I messaged him and I said, "Hey, what's going on? Call me right now. I want to talk to you." And I don't really know what gave me the guts to do it, but I just was like, I can't believe this guy's really going to kill himself. And so we talked, and I know he was talking to other people as well, but I was just brutally honest, and I said, "Man, no one's going to be able to stop you from doing this if you want to do it." I said, "But if you're already at rock bottom, why not do something else crazy before you off yourself? Go to Africa and ride an elephant. Go to a different country and experience things you've never experienced before. If you're really this low, there are things that you might want to do before you kill yourself." And he was like, "You know what? That's some pretty good advice." And he didn't kill himself, and he is still struggling, but he's getting help, and he's working on it. And so that was the first time I was actually online looking up the suicide hotline and sending him information, and that was the first time I've ever had to do it. So it's useful. It's useful to have that stuff. But you don't need to wait until you suffer trauma to reach out for help. That's just something I think everybody should be aware of too. So advocate for yourself, find local resources. All I did was Google local resources in Rockford, and I found all of these things here. Another thing is check with your employer. Sometimes they do have wellness programs. Also check with your insurance to see that they might have something for you as well. So the big thing I wanted to talk about today was just some coping strategies that you can do on an everyday basis. There are so many of them out there. I mean, I found tons of them, and I've been working with my therapist and my doctor. I've been exposed to many of them, and I just listed some of the popular ones up here today, and I just wanted to talk about a few of those real quick. So the first one is mindfulness, and this is like a big hot topic that's been really out there lately. You've been seeing mindfulness everywhere. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows what that means. And really, it just means being aware of yourself, being present being aware of your sensations, your thoughts, your feelings, and the environment around you. Looking at the world and yourself with compassion and gentleness. Being able to be in the here and the now instead of, dwelling on the past, because it's already over, there's nothing you can do about it, and really panicking about the future. Now, there is obviously some benefits in making sure you're worried about the future, right? You can't just frolic in the daisies all day long, but the point is you can't miss the here and the now, right? You're missing beautiful things when you focus too much on the future. So studies have showed that mindfulness can reduce pain, stress, anxiety, depression, improve memory, improve attention, weight loss, better sleep, reduce risk for vascular disease, and more satisfying relationships. That's crazy. Sign me up, right? So I think that's something that people can look into. It's a really positive tool that not a lot of people utilize. So sometimes it might mean doing something formal like doing meditation, doing yoga. Sometimes it's just informal thoughts and how you think about things. And sometimes it's just making important choices about food, relationships, and things like that. There's a couple basics to mindfulness, and those are things like cultivate compassion. Just be a compassionate person. When somebody else is around you and they do something negative, instead of reacting negatively or thinking negatively, you could just say, "Wow, I wonder what that person experienced today. What is he going through?" Right? And being gentle and compassionate to yourself too. It's also starting every day with intention. Get up and say, "I'm going to have a good day. What is it that I want to accomplish today?" And do those things. And also dealing with life's challenges in a positive way. A lot of people react negatively to challenges. We're all guilty of it. I do it too. Someone cuts you off right where you're driving here and you get all mad and you're like, "I'm going to," But again, you can change the way that you react to that by just saying, "You know what? He already cut me off. There's nothing I can do about it. Am I going to let him ruin my day? No. Maybe, he was late to work and he's about to get fired if he's late one more time. Who knows, right? Maybe he's rushing to the hospital. So I'm going to just try to let it go, right? I'm going to stop reacting negatively to life's challenges and when they're thrown at me. It's hard. It's not always easy, especially challenges that are really, really hard to deal with. But your mind is a powerful tool, and you can really change your mindset if you respond to things in a different way. This is just another cool thing I've been looking into recently, and they're actually starting this in like grade schools, and it's called tapping. And I don't know, has anybody heard of tapping before? It's kind of weird. You're just you're doing all these like tapping motions. There's like a little like program for it, and they say it's kind of similar to like acupuncture, where it just kind of recenters and refocuses you. And so they're saying it really works with stress reduction and anxiety reduction, and they've been doing it in some grade schools, and they're seeing really good results with bullying and happier kids, and the kids love it. So I just thought it was really interesting, and I just thought it was funny because I totally forgot which prince this is. I forgot. Is that Charles? Which one is that? Harry. Okay, so Prince Harry does it too. He's been doing tapping. So I just thought that was a cool technique. If you're interested, you could look into. And there's stuff called cognitive behavioral therapy. This is like a huge, huge topic with lots of things. But the point of it is that what you think and what you do influence how you feel. And so if you can think differently, that can influence how you feel. And so that's why something called laughing yoga works, because even if you're in a bad mood, if you make yourself laugh, if you do laughing, it can make you feel better. So there's a lot of techniques with cognitive behavioral therapy out there. So I'm going to skip this activity because I don't want to take up too much of your time. This was just a cognitive behavioral activity where basically I said, tell me about your drive here. And usually what happens in a big crowd is there was traffic. I got stuck at a red light. Somebody cut me off. And then I say, okay, all of these things, what do they have in common? They're negative, right? And then I say, okay, I want you to rethink about your drive here and what was positive about it. And then people will find, oh, well, I saw a beautiful hawk flying above my car. The trees are beautiful. They're turning colors. We have a beautiful campus. And so just the point of focusing on positives, because we tend to focus on the negatives, can really change your mindset and put you in a better mood and make you a happier person. Exercise and yoga are obviously super important to mental health. They've been shown to really do some beneficial things to your brain. And if you haven't tried exercising yet, and if you hate it, you don't have to do traditional exercise. Do something fun, do something new, try something. Has anybody ever tried goat yoga? How can you go to goat yoga and not leave feeling happy? So that's something I want to try. We don't have any goats around here, though. So just, you know what I mean? You don't have to do the typical exercise that you don't like. This is just another one I found, but I'm going to skip this one for time's sake. I want to go to positive self-talk. Positive self-talk is super important because on a daily basis, most people will say negative things in their head about themselves, about others, and about the world multiple times a day. And we don't say positive things. Like, when I was going to do this presentation, I thought, well, what if everybody hates it? What if they think I'm terrible? What if they hate my hair? What if they don't like my shoes? You know what? If they don't, what does it matter, right? If someone doesn't like my presentation or my shoes, how does that affect me? It really doesn't, right? So the point is we have to stop thinking these negative thoughts all the time and replace them with positive thoughts. And not just about yourself, but about others in the world. It's very easy to go around and be like, I don't like that person, and this guy, blah, 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 right? And the world sucks, and I don't make enough money. And it is easy to focus on those things. But the reality is we have a lot to be thankful of and to think positively about as well. And we just forget to do those things. So that's a super important thing. And I challenge people to get up every day and say one positive thing about yourself in the mirror before you leave. And it sounds silly, and sometimes it feels silly, but do it, because I think that you'll actually be in a better mood when you leave. And just a couple last thoughts, a few things that have helped me that I've been working on. One, I've been listening to positive things in my ears when I can. So I use audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube videos, anything I can. I put my earbuds in when I'm doing the laundry, the dishes, doing cleaning, whenever I have a chance that I can listen, I'll listen to things that are positive and powerful. I just search for things, right? And I find things that lead to others. You can get books through Audible, but I know that costs money, so you can always go to your public library. They have free books. Your college does as well. I found an app called Headway app, and it does cost money, so I did it only for a few weeks, and then I canceled it. But what it did was open my eyes to books I would have never, ever picked up in my life before. And basically, this Headway app says, okay, pick a challenge. And maybe the challenge is, I want to be more self-confident. I want to be more successful. And you pick a challenge of growth, and then what it does is it gives you like 20 different books about that topic. And then it does like almost like a Cliff Notes, where it just does a mini version of the book for you, and you listen to all of them. And then you can go and say, oh my gosh, I really liked this book, and then read the full version later. And so I thought that was cool because I found some really good books, and one of them was Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Would have never ever picked it up. I thought it looked boring and sounded boring. It was awesome, and I just love it, and I want to listen to it again. And then one other thing that I have done was I downloaded a free app called Quote of the Day, and it just every day sends you a positive quote. So every day you wake up to something positive sent to your phone, and I just try to think about that quote throughout the day and how I can try to implement it. So in conclusion, basically, mental health is cultivated throughout your life. You don't just have to think about it once and it's done. You have to put in the work over your lifetime. Some mental illnesses need treatment, and that's okay. Don't forget that your power and your thoughts, don't forget that your thoughts and your actions have power. Your brain is a powerful tool, and most of us forget to use it. I was going to do another activity called laughing yoga. There's only a few of us here left, though, and we're running out of time. But this was hysterical. I'm not even joking. So the first time I had to do this, I walked into a room, and we were doing, she's like, we're going to do laughing yoga. And I was in the back, rolling my eyes, crossing my arms. I was so annoyed because I'm like, this is so stupid. I didn't want to do it. And so she's up there going, okay, everybody, I want you to go, ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And then she's like, okay, ho, ho, ho. And everybody's doing the noises, he, he, he. And then she makes me point at you and go, ha, 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 ho, ho, ho. And then she makes everybody look at each other and do these things. And literally everybody is starting to crack up, and we're like crying, laughing, because it's so ridiculous. But the funny thing was, it worked. We were all laughing hysterically because it was so stupid. And when we left, we were laughing and talking. And so I just thought it was crazy that I thought this was so embarrassing and stupid I didn't want to do it, but it worked. And I was the one in the back like rolling my eyes with it. So this works better with a big group, but it's really fun and it was awesome. Anyway, my last words I wanted to leave you with were two things. One, what other people think about you is none of your business. What other people think about you is none of your business. And I don't actually know who created that quote, because there's a lot of people who claim they've created that quote. And I think for me, that was something that's been very helpful. And the other thing is, no one's going to save you. No one is going to save you. You have to be the one to save yourself, to advocate for yourself, to save your own mental health, your own fitness, your own nutrition. Everybody else is busy with their own problems, right? And so my last slide is just a bunch of quotes from Marcus Aurelius that I really liked. But anyway, that was what my thoughts on mental health, and my point was to see if I could give others just little things that they could do throughout the day to help their own mental health. So that's all, guys.
All right, I want to thank George and Katie for coming out today. Like I said, it's very beneficial. I know they put a lot of time and work into these presentations. They're great people on campus, great resources. I would suggest if anybody else wants to learn more about whether it be mental health or just physical health, definitely look into psychology classes, definitely look into the fitness, wellness, sports. I know when I went here, For the 1 year I was here, I took a couple classes in psychology and the fitness, wellness, sports, and I had a great experience with them. So definitely learned a lot, definitely helped me actually with the career I currently have. So I would definitely look into those two departments. If you had questions, I'm sure you could reach out to either one of those two. So once again, I just want to thank you guys for your time and everything you guys have doing. I guess for the final portion of this, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the resources we have here on campus. And I'm not going to go super in depth here or super long, but if you do have issues or you need to talk to somebody, whether it be mental health, stress, anxiety, people with panic attacks. We have a lot of people on campus that have a lot of different mental health issues, and our department sees a lot of them. We deal with a lot of them. We're going to treat you like anybody else out there, whether you're having a mental break or you're just having a bad day, need to talk to somebody. You can always come talk to us. You're no different than me talking to another officer at that point. I want to hear what you have to say, and hopefully can point you in the right direction. So some of the people that you can contact here on campus besides the police department, the Dean of Students office, that's run by Terica Huntley. She's an awesome person, really looks out for the students, really wants them to be successful. And, without proper mental health, you're not going to be as successful as you could be. So she's more than happy to help out with that. She doesn't directly necessarily always deal with that. However, there is a RVC counselor in the dean's office, and her name is Andrea McCauley. Like I said, she's also very passionate about helping others on campus. I know she deals a lot with students with anxiety. She's dealt a lot with people coming back to campus. For some of those of you that are watching that are doing the online thing, if you're a little timid to come back to campus, she's dealing a lot with people with social anxiety to come back. So trust me when I say this, you're not going to be the only person, because she's dealt with a lot of that. Some other outside resources, if Andrea can't help you, she's more than happy to share resources. I know Katie had put some up on the PowerPoint, but we have resources such as Rosecrans. They deal with a lot of mental health as well as substance abuse. Remedies is also a good solution. They have some good people. I think I saw KP Counseling. I know they help a lot. And I actually have a family member who actually used them after the death of a spouse, and they actually offered free counseling at the funeral home that she was going to, but they were through KP, and they actually helped her out quite a bit. So very good people over there. The other thing we have here on campus is the BIT program, and it stands for Behavioral Intervention Team. And basically what they do is they meet, I think it's once a week, maybe once a month, I'm not entirely sure, but they meet and they talk about students that have come that may have issues or different problems, and they'll talk about the students, not in a negative way, but ways to actually help them, ways to have them be more successful and be able to continue their college path and be successful while also helping their well-being. So you can actually go on the Dean of Students website, on the RVC website, and you can fill out a BIT referral to somebody. If you know a friend that's struggling with, whether it be substance abuse or mental health, or something just doesn't seem right with that person, you can fill out a form anonymously. Somebody from the Dean of Students office will reach out to that person. They're not going to be, reaching out to them to judge them. They're just going to reach out and offer any assistance if they need it. We've actually had quite a few people use that program, and we've actually seen that go up quite a bit actually since COVID. So don't feel afraid to reach out to that. The people here on campus are more than willing to help you out, and if they can't specifically help you out, they'll definitely point you in the right direction to get to where you want to be. So with that being said, I'll kind of piggyback off Katie and say that, knowledge is power. So the more you know about mental health, the more you understand it. It's not only good for yourself, like she said, to focus on, mental health daily. It's just as important as working out or eating healthy, because ultimately your mind is what controls you. So I mean, what better thing to do than to focus on that? But, and also like George said, you don't want to, become a statistic because of a stigma. There's no stigma here at the college when it comes to mental health. Our department doesn't stigmatize it. The professors do not. The counselors, the dean of students, coaches, nobody stigmatizes that. Whenever they've had an issue, they're very quick to call us or very quick to reach out to them and help them. So it's a great place for a resource. So if you're a student here or a staff member, don't feel embarrassed to reach out, because there's plenty of people here more than happy to help you. So with that being said, once again, I want to thank Katie and George. And for those of you that came, thank you. For those of you watching online, I hope you guys learned something. And if you need to reach out to us, by all means, reach out, and hope everybody has a good day. So thank you.